Welcome to The Next Tier, a leadership podcast about the people decisions that shape organizations and the moments that define careers. We're bringing you candid conversations with executives, founders, and industry leaders about how they build teams, navigate complexity, and make high-stakes hiring and leadership decisions. Let's talk. Yeah, many exclamation points. And then you add on to that some of the new data that we're seeing. So the women that do make it, they're still in tech, age 30, 35, mid-career, they've become a first-time manager. Maybe they've gotten up to the director level. There is this mass exodus just walking away from working altogether. I've had it. Or I'm going to take a few years off. And it's going to be crippling long-term. We already don't have enough people to fill the roles that are going to exist in the world. And that's a whole nother conversation that we could spend hours on. But so we already have a people problem. And then we have a women in tech and women in the workforce problem that's just exacerbating the fact that we are not going to have enough people to do the work.
I think you have to also look at why. Why are they leaving? Like I said, that McKinsey in the workplace, study indicates that it's because they don't feel supported. But go one level deeper on that. Is that burnout? Is that support by their direct manager? Is that support at the executive level? Is that support programs maybe that are housed traditionally out of like organizational change management or HR functions around succession planning or emerging talent, whatever it might be called in your organization? Why are we losing them? And so that's where it goes back to the relentless pursuer is I'm like, okay, got it. Tell me what the problem is, and you can bet I'm going to be part of the solution because I'm going to be tackling it because I know what we're trying to tackle. But this idea of just saying, okay, we're losing them and gosh, that's sad. No, what are you doing about it? And if you are in a role of influence and impact, roll your pink sleeves up and get it done. Like GSD, get stuff done.
I love it. And it's oftentimes the sad part, I think, and not to just say that's sad, but like it's oftentimes it's little pieces of all of those reasons, right? I don't think it's one overarching reason. Otherwise, I think we'd be further along than where we are. But I think you hit it on the head. Lack of support, lack of seeing themselves in leadership positions and having the mentorship and sponsorship to get there. And that's why allies and Rob's a girl dad. Mm-hmm. That's why girl dads, oftentimes make the best sponsors and mentors for women in the workforce and women in technology. I'm going to say something controversial here because I'm a firm believer in a hybrid workforce. I hate the 5-day-a-week return to office. I think it's silly. I also am just a person who values FaceTime, so I don't love fully remote either, although we operate that way in many of our markets. But I think you're seeing some of the numbers that you're seeing over the past 12 months because we are seeing the return to office. And I think that's women are losing the flexibility for childcare, all of the other pieces. And I think that if you have a 2-parent working household, then women are often the first ones to raise their hand and stay back home or do something part-time. And so I would love to see data. I have nothing to back this up. It's just a theory, but I'd love to see the data on the women we're losing, which we have that data, but the return to office policies, because I bet you money there's some correlation there. Just my 2 cents.
I might respectfully challenge something.
Okay, challenge me.
In that space. And that is I won't even say I'm trying to be a recovering introvert. Just as an introvert, the level of effort and energy that it takes for me to be prepared and kind of quote unquote on stage all day. My husband and I joke. He's like, I don't know what happens. You walk in the door and I think your IQ goes down, honey. And if you know my husband, he is uber supportive. I don't want anybody to hear that and think, gosh, she's got a jerk of a husband. He's amazing. But his point is you've been on it all day, every meeting. He said, I've never seen anything like it. You don't prep for those meetings. You go from topic to topic to topic to topic. And he said, by the time you walk in, he said, I know it's your safe space. And so you don't have to have every answer and have to, kind of continue that momentum. And so I kind of wonder the women that we're losing, what's their personality profile? Are they predominantly introverts? And so it's really difficult for them to sort of muster the courage to be on all day, every day for 5 days? Or are they extroverts, which to your point, you like being in the office? So if it's an extrovert, that might not be the driving force of it. But that's the kind of stuff I'm fascinated by from a just knowing what I deal with day to day and preparing to be the best I can be in my job and checking my introvert at the door. I'd be curious what that actual statistic is.
I know someone else who goes from meeting to meeting to meeting, no breaks, one after the other. As you were talking, I was thinking it's social battery is a term that I heard in the last year or so. I think to your point, being on stage, right, as an introvert, that social battery depletes itself. When you walk through that door, it's not about you being dumber. It's about you recharging.
I like that.
I think that gives you that comfort. And talking about support and the statistic around that and losing women in the workforce, specifically in technology, I think as an ally, I hear confidence and I hear lack of belief. And I think that's something that as a leader, I don't know how to overcome that other than to be present. And I think as long as we have presence in the lives of our team, and that, we talk about open door a lot, but I think it's acting that and getting out and checking in on people on our teams. That's support. I'm here if you need me, but I just want to make sure you're okay. I don't think we do that enough. Not just necessarily me, but as leaders, it's very easy to be isolated because it can be a little lonely in our seats. It can. But I think that comes back to what can we do? And it's encouragement, driving belief that you are capable. I think those are things that when I hear that come to mind in terms of what can I do different.
I think it's a great call out. I'm mindful of, I really struggle with public recognition. It's not my thing. It's why when Betsy's talking about an intro, my teeth are gritted and my eyes are closed and I'm just like, dear Lord, let's get through this quickly. But that's not everybody. And so you're 100% right on your encouragement may look different. It may need to be public encouragement if they're really, really validated by that. A thank you that's on an all hands call might be light years ahead of what they've ever received in their entire career. And it takes you 5 seconds to do it, just the impact of it. But I think you're 100% right. You have to have the discussions and have to be willing and able to adjust your approach so that you get as many people feeling validated and rewarded and feeling respected as a result of the contributions that they make, regardless of what their role is.
And then there's the multi-generational aspect where as leaders right now, we're managing across 5 decades of teams.
Crazy.
It's pretty crazy because how we communicate that out to, someone in their 20s versus someone in their 60s is totally different. And the temperature and test for that is really challenging to us because our style is our style. Sometimes it's tough to mimic what needs to be done to get that communication across. Or the CTO phrase that you used earlier.
Add CRO to that. Chief Repeating Officer.
Chief Translator.
That sounds nicer. A couple of quick things. So when this comes out, I would love when we just had the discussion about kind of the reasons why women are leaving the workforce, et cetera, I would love for people to comment and tell us, please drop a comment and tell us what your thoughts are, or if you are a woman who has left the workforce, why, what were you missing, et cetera. I'd love, just Jen, to your point, that curiosity of knowing what's out there. Give a shout out to Rob Baker, Jen's husband, who is amazing. He is amazing. If he did say, when he says that, not if, but when he says that, we know he is joking. He's a great supporter, supporter. Talking about the person that you mentioned earlier who was someone you encountered earlier in your career. You're glad you had her as a terrible boss earlier. So on the flip side of that, who is a woman who has opened a door for you or one that you wish you had had earlier in your career?
Oh my gosh, I've been very fortunate to have great mentors, both male and female. Very, very fortunate. And I didn't realize it until later in my career just how unique that scenario actually was. And so I'm a little spoiled in that. I'll say when I first took the step into technology, it actually was with a bank, and we had a female CIO at the time, Renee, and I had a really candid conversation with her around, I I don't think I'm ready for this. I don't think I need to do this. I think this is outside of my comfort zone. I don't know how insert whatever imposter syndrome I was working through that day in between my ears. I thankfully had the relationship with Renee to just go, you're going to have to just humor me and hear me out. Here are my hesitations. Here are my concerns. How would I overcome this? And sort of ask her, from a female CIO perspective, sort of what her perspective was. She gave the best advice, and she's like, now it's probably referred to as suck it up, buttercup. It's probably the best description I can give you. She's
tough love.
Yeah, absolutely. But her feedback at the moment was, how will you know if you never try? And she said, I know you're competitive enough where you're always going to second guess it. She's like, so you get in there, you hate it. Let's have that conversation. You get in there, you love it. Let's have that conversation. You get in there and you're struggling. Let's figure it out. And she said, but you don't have the personality to say no and then just never wonder about it. And so I just think back to that and think, you know what, if I would have never made the leap, I would have never challenged myself to the depth that I did if I hadn't had Renee in that space going, just suck it up, buttercup, and let's do this.
I love that. And think of how many times as parents, all of us here are parents, we've told that to our kids, right? Like, just try it. Like, what's the worst that could happen? Or you will never know unless you try something. And that's where you grow, is in that uncomfortable zone. But it's funny how, as an adult, especially, the imposter syndrome is so real that it takes a great mentor, leader, supporter, whatever we want to call it in an organization, to sometimes like give you that parenting advice to be like, suck it up. Like, you should try it,
I have a great friend, Tony. You've met him through the years. I've worked with him for a number of years, but he was one of those that would just say, blow it up and then fix it. He's like, worst case scenario, you're a fixer. Blow it up and then fix it.
Yeah.
And
great
so
advice.
For whatever reason, that's kind of stuck with me as well. So
I heard something a couple weeks ago. It said, regret is our strongest emotion. And I thought about that. Like, the whole fact that, to your point, like, I don't know if that's what I want to do, but Renee, I'm encouraging you to take that leap and try it. And if it fails, so what? Then you don't have that regret. Like, very powerful advice from a mentor perspective. And I think you have those people in your career. That's what has led you to the seat that you're in. Those things were intentional in your career path, whether you knew it or not. They clearly are.
Absolutely. My current boss has a phrase that says we're at the intersection of growth. And what he means by that is, if you're looking back and focused on the back, you're either hung up on regret or ego. But if you view yourself at the intersection of growth, what direction do you go? You hold on to your ego and to your regret, or you forge forward. And so I think that I literally have it written down. I have it on my notepad that's with me all the time. I think it's brilliant. And I don't know what, I'm pretty motivated by like a tidbit of something. Like, I think through it and I really digest it, and I'll reuse it and I'll think through it. And so I like being challenged by a quote. And so he said that in a recent
intersection
discussion.
of growth.
If you're looking back, you're focused on regret or ego.
Yeah.
So make the choice towards, growth.
I like that. You can't change it. You can only grow from it, right?
That's right.
You can only change your behavior moving forward. All right, I'm going to move on to another topic. And this is our first episode, so I'll explain this a little bit. But at Tier 4, we always choose a word of the year. This year, it's charge, year of the horse. We're really leaning into that. But last year, our team voted on our word of the year, which was uncommon. And it became our new identity. It actually became our tagline of uncommon on purpose. And so one segment that we'll have in every podcast is what we're going to call uncommon on purpose. And so we're looking to learn more about uncommon stories, higher standards, etc., from our guests. And so with that understanding and lens of being uncommon on purpose. So when you hear that phrase, what does it mean to you as a leader to be uncommon on purpose?
I think it's a challenge to rise outside of your introvert, outside of your insecurities, outside of your hesitations, and that what you're striving for is for the betterment of your team. So go after and lean into it with intentionality, because the rewards are much greater for your team if you can figure out how to get over your hesitation. I have a quote, sorry, I have lots of quotes. There's one that I've received recently in a book that says, is nothing more than fear that you chose to ignore. Think about that for a second, right? It's uncommon to have courage. It is common to have fear. So just fundamentally, that particular right out of the gate. But then when you add the whole uncommon on purpose, so now I'm being really intentional to look past the fear and do it anyway, to look past my hesitation and still take the leap. And so I don't know, I have that in the back of my mind that uncommon on purpose really resonates to you will never improve where you never start and take another step in there. And so I don't know, from an intentionality standpoint, I like blowing stuff up, to use Tony's term. Blow it up and fix it. I kind of like that. So I don't know that there's any part of me that's common. So I've had to lean into my uncommonness. So I think this might just have given me a tagline to be uncommon, but now I get to put on purpose behind it, and then I'll trademark it back to you and Rob.
Uncommon with courage.
There it is.
That could be a great
with
one
intention.
for you. Yeah.
Uncommon with intention.
Yeah.
Betsy likes to say, rip the Band-Aid off. So we just rip the Band-Aid off is what we do.
That just seems painful.
Well, sometimes there's pain involved.
I was going to say, I think I got that from you, actually. I can hear your voice saying rip the Band-Aid off.
As you were saying that, I thought about how fear holds us back.
Absolutely.
And I think the courage to get past that is what I took away from your point, that there's been so many times where fears held me back in my journey. I think the courage to push through is the key. It really is.
And sometimes the courage is not for yourself initially. It's for the bigger purpose. It's for your team. It's for your line of business. It's for your company. It's for your whatever it is. Sometimes that first step that you're taking, even in your hesitation and even still in your fear, is the first step, because you know it means more if you just can get out of your own way. And I think that's a different level of professional maturity too that happens as you go through your career and as you have really strong advocates to sort of challenge you to say, kind of like the Renee, take it anyway.
Yeah.
Take the first step anyway. We'll figure out the rest.
Yeah, that vulnerability component.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really it, right? You're allowing yourself to be vulnerable, make a decision that ultimately you may not be able to defend.
Absolutely.
And even when we're trying to make the decision that is the best for the most, it's a challenge.
Yeah.
Yep. So
if leadership were for the faint of heart, everybody would do it.
It's true. It's true. And kudos to those that get that professional maturity right off the bat, right? Or that are born with that or have it in spades. It's
bless them.
Not my path, that's for sure. So a couple things I'm curious about in the uncommon on purpose realm. What are some uncommon things you do and how you run meetings?
Oh gosh, my team will probably tell you I ask a lot of questions. Sometimes I know the answer and sometimes I don't. Both are okay. But I don't know. It goes back to a mentor that I had. I had someone tell me recently it's the altitude.
Top of your altitude.
If you're the highest in altitude in the room. So I'm going to let you think on that. I don't know that I love it. I don't know that I hate it, but I'm working through it. But you have the responsibility to recognize that you will have people that are introverts that are not comfortable sharing what they actually are thinking. And they've got a really good point that would prevent a pitfall, but they're just not comfortable in that setting. You know, you're going to have the traditional, the smartest and the loudest, right? Those are always in the room. But at your altitude, it's your responsibility to tweak the approach to say, spark discussion in the room. It doesn't matter whose decision it is, spark discussion. So now you can look, I'm not a big fan of calling out people when you know they're introverted. That's tough. And so if I do that, I will say, hey, I'm so sorry to put you on the spot, but I feel like you've got a thought and we just have been talking over you. Do you mind sharing it? That's a really easy way to kind of try to do it. But I try to avoid kind of putting them on the spot. But you can ask questions in the room. Help me understand. Did we try something like this before? Great. Tell me, help me understand what were the results that we had when we did phase one? Is there anything that we learned that now's our chance to kind of go back to the drawing board and what would we tweak? If we could do it all over again, tell me what we missed, and that's okay that we missed it. But just being really intentional in the room around, one, provoking discussion, and two, removing the stigma of blame. In my role, I kind of go back to the translator. It doesn't matter to me who made the decision. It doesn't matter to me how we made the decision. What matters to me is it a repeatable issue that I'm responsible for and that my team can help avoid? That's a different version of discussion in the room. So now when you hear someone say, well, so-and-so missed whatever was missed, right? Okay, great. You know what? We all make mistakes, and that's perfectly okay. I'm not focused on that. What I'm trying to get my head wrapped around is, what do we do now? What do we do different? If anything, who do we need to bring in that maybe could help us now that we have the lessons learned that we had? Were they involved in the beginning of it? Maybe not, maybe so, doesn't matter. But it's almost like the outcome of the decision or the discussion doesn't even matter in the room. You're just provoking a level of discussion and vulnerability and taking all of the personal aspects out of it to just say, we want to be better for the benefit of, in my case, Arvest Bank. I want to be better for the purpose of WIT if I'm, in a board meeting. I want to be focused on how do we all rally these resources in here that are all brilliant in their own right to get to whatever the best decision is. And so that whole idea of altitude, you have to own that if you've got people in there that report to you and report to them or report outside of your organization, even more important, you get to drive the tone of that discussion. And that discussion is just that. Ask questions and shut up. Just let it unfold how it unfolds. You'll get to the answer. You'll get to the lessons learned. You'll get to a place where everybody asks their questions and feels valued in the discussion, but it didn't come top down. It didn't come because Jennifer said so. It didn't come because whatever altitude or role you're at, right? Trying to use it in a sentence. You feeling pretty good about it?
I like it because as you've been talking about it, I think, what do you have when you're at altitude? You have perspective. Mm-hmm. You have perspective of the whole landscape. Whereas some of your team members, right, just in the organization or other teams, they don't have your same perspective. You might have someone who is brand new. They're kind of in the forest, in the trees. They can't see above the trees. You might have some other people flying single engine personal planes who are, a little bit higher altitude, but you're the one up here who has the entire perspective of the business and your team. I don't know. I like it.
Yeah. I think too, if I think about what you were saying, I think at our altitude, we're very programmed, and we've been programmed our entire lives to have the answer. And what I heard you say is, I ask a lot of questions. So it's our ability to ask the question that sparks that conversation that leads to the path of solving problems or identifying gaps and ultimately creating a resolution.
Well, and go back to the question earlier in our discussion around, a CIO from 5 years ago versus one now, right? Maybe in the engine room example that we used 5 years ago, you did have to have the answer. And it was very deliberate and very intentional. And the scope of your responsibilities was not typically as broad as it is in a current state CIO also, right? Sometimes you have data, sometimes you have CISOs, sometimes you have a variety of different things that historically 5 years ago, that was a little more unique. So maybe that was realistic 5 years ago for you to have every answer. But now I cannot have every piece of information necessary to make every decision that makes its way to me without any help from anybody on my team. And the thought that I can walk in every day and be able to do that is just absolutely absurd. Mm-hmm. And so I'm professionally mature enough to go, I don't have every answer, and I'm okay with that. But in the form of this meeting, let's talk through it. What do I need to know? What am I missing? You want to talk about a great question? Mm-hmm. What am I missing that you know backwards and forwards and I haven't even thought of? What is that? Because then it sort of builds them up. They're coming from a place of they've got all the answers, they've got all the information, and they have the opportunity to influence whoever it is that asked the question. It's a little bit of like a flipping kind of the power dynamic on his head, which y'all know, I like to blow things up and then fix them. So
I love this. All right, one more uncommon question, then I'm going to move to our final segment, which is going to be a fun one. In terms of, because we're in the people business, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, we're in the recruiting space. What's uncommon about the way you hire?
Oh gosh, I would say early on in my career I would lean towards the resume. I would lean towards the experience. I would lean towards them having the ability to be in the room and take all the decisions that I didn't have to do. So I was very intentional early in my career around the experience that might close a gap that maybe I didn't have that experience in. in the technology space, that's a big thing, right? I would say as I got later in my career, I feel like one of my superpowers, if it's okay to say that, is I am a really good judge of character. I know early on who's going to be able to figure it out, and I know early on who isn't. Now, it doesn't mean I play my card. It doesn't mean I show you. It doesn't mean I tell you what list you're on.
Oh, no.
But as I've gotten older in my career, I really have realized, like, gosh, I should have stuck to my guns. I knew that and I backed down. So I think for me, my recruiting strategy now is you have to blend seamlessly with my senior leadership team, where when I'm not in the room, there is multiple perspectives and that you will get to the right answer. And maybe I have a follow-up question, just, hey, walk me through this or this or this. But fundamentally, it is a sound decision that had a variety of different pieces of feedback and personalities that weighed in on it. So for me, it's less about what the resume looks like and now what their skill set and what their personality and how they convey from a professional demeanor in the interview cycle. For me, it's now, how well do you blend with my senior leadership team, who I rely on relentlessly for us to get after what we need to get after? And I think, the minute that they have hesitations, I think, okay, if I have the same gut hesitation and then their feedback from the interviews are, I can't get there, I don't get it, right? I now have the courage that I lacked in my earlier career to go, no, that's not going to work for me.
That's skills-based hiring, moving from what I would call qualification hiring to skills-based hiring. And I think relying on your instinct. Betsy's heard me say this a lot, Jen, and I call that your spidey sense. Your instinct, generally your gut, or the art and science, to your point earlier,
Yeah.
You've had enough conversations with people, you've hired enough successful people to know.
But you'll talk yourself out of it.
Correct.
You'll second guess your gut. You'll go, gosh. You may even have somebody in your career that your gut says no, and then you hire them, and then they surprise you and end up being a great one. And so all the more reason where it's that sort of second guessing yourself, and that kind of imposter sneaks in when you do have somebody that sort of challenges your gut reaction. So to some extent, I think you got to be mature enough to recognize it's not a one size fits all. But you may have somebody that contradicts your gut, but the older I get, the fewer and fewer instances I realize that if I have an initial reaction, we're 90% plus.
I love it.
The benefit of hindsight.
It is.
Absolutely.
The benefit of hindsight.
Piece of that for sure.
All right. So our fourth segment before we close that we're going to be doing on our podcast is called the Top Tier 10. So we have a set of questions, and we have a few more than 10. So not every episode will have the exact same 10, but they'll have the same ones that we pull from. So I'm going to hit you with some rapid fire, like 30 seconds.
Okay.
Like whatever comes to you first with 10 questions.
Do it.
It'll give our listeners a little bit more insight, although they've got an amazing insight to what a great leader you are. So if you could build your personal advisory board of 3 people, past or present, business leaders, athletes, political leaders, whoever, who would be those 3 people on your personal advisory board?
Okay, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I just want to pick her brain. There are so many things. Talk about courage and the tenacity and the relentless pursuit of leaving it better than you found, hands down. I just want to pick her brain. I buy her a cocktail. I'm going to say Deion Sanders.
Okay,
And
Coach Prime.
Coach Prime. And the reason I say
Sunglasses.
I love his sunglasses. I have them.
I think, after having watched that show, I have a different appreciation for him. His style of relentless pursuit on behalf of his team and his kids, and wanting everybody that touches him in that ecosystem to be better than he found it, and to be, I think his term is great humans, to be great humans when they leave his facility and leave his program. I think he is not in his core who he is publicly. And I think there's something so fascinating about how he built a brand from an entrepreneurial standpoint that stayed grounded to who he is, and that he has this ongoing, I will not fail. I may fail in a game, but he says he doesn't fail. It's like, we didn't get that right. And I think that whole idea of your words mean worlds and the impact creates momentum, I seriously want to just be friends with him. I wish he would be friends with me. The third one, I'm so torn, and I'm torn for different reasons. I really feel like Sarah Blakely and I could be best friends. She is here in Atlanta.
Watch out, Sarah. Somebody's coming for you.
That's right. I just think, again, early on in her career, in an entrepreneurial fashion, to then go after a fashion female product, I just think she's got a level of tenacity and perseverance that must run in her actual DNA. And I just feel like when you surround yourself with people that are 5 and 20 and 100 times better than you, I do think osmosis is the thing. And I think all three of them, I would be better as a result of having access to them to just be around them and figure out who they are, what they do, what makes them tick. And I think it would be brilliant.
That's a hell of an advisory board.
Do you own a pair of sneaks? Isn't that what they're called?
Yeah. Yes. I'm very proud of you for doing it. I do.
Okay.
How many pairs?
I have one.
That was not in the top 10 tier question.
Okay.
It's a follow-up.
A clarification.
All right. So just to summarize, Don Sanders, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Sarah Blakely.
Correct.
I love this. Second question, a book, podcast, or idea that changed how you lead?
Obsessed with Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins.
You're going to get a Let Them tattoo? That's the thing right now.
Gosh, I've seen a couple photos. I like her. I don't know about that yet. I love the sentiment, and I'll tell you why. It hit me when I read it in a different space. I was not in this role yet, but it hit me differently because I had held on to so many things from a past portion of my career that fueled self-doubt, that fueled if I could have done something different, the answer, the outcome, the feeling would be different. And I held a lot of that in between my ears, right? Going, I just would have, could have, should have, blah, whatever it was. And so when I read that book, it was this idea of I cannot control any of that. I can't control the people. I can't control the decisions. I can't control the outcomes. I have to let that be what it is. And then I get to make the very next decision, which in her book is let me choose who gets my time now. Let me choose who I surround myself with. Let me trust my gut more on people that let me down and I talked myself out of them, that being their true color, right? That whole saying of, when somebody shows you their true colors, believe them. So for me, the impact, I've given it to numerous friends. I love it. I love the sentiment that says, you can't control everything, but you can control what you do afterwards. And for me, it just was brilliant timing and a message that I needed to hear to forgive and move towards forgetting. And also accept that there was nothing else I could have done that would have changed it. And so now I get to recraft what I want to be when I grow up, which I think is a pretty impactful piece. So yeah, I love it. I don't know about the tattoo, but I love the book.
Love it. I'll take you to get that tattoo. You decide. What instantly earns your trust in someone?
Radical candor. I know it. I don't know it. I know it. I don't know it. I think one of the most mature things you can say in a meeting with somebody at a different altitude is, I don't know the answer to that, but I'll get it to you, and then follow up with it. So don't tell me you're gonna, let me track that down. Go track it down and come back to me, because odds are I'm remembering. I'm a good list person. My team will tell you I have a memory of an elephant. So I'm going to remember that you said I'm going to go look, and I'm going to remember that you didn't come back. So you're going to lose some credibility pretty quickly in that space as well. So I would say radical candor, and I would also say elements of urgency. Not everything is urgent, but to some extent, when there's, in the technology space, when there's a production outage, when there's a customer impact, there are things that are more urgent than, I don't really want to do that. I'll get to that when I want to get to that. So I think those are probably my two.
If you weren't in technology, you didn't have this career, what would you be doing instead?
My corporate answer is I would be probably in organizational change management or change design. I love the sort of operational things we've talked about. I like putting all the puzzle pieces together and kind of building and improving something. My non-corporate answer is I would do anything probably in the F1 marketing space, particularly in support of any team that Mr. Lewis Hamilton is on. I am a diehard Lewis Hamilton F1 fan.
Knowing you as well as I've gotten to know you, I was shocked that no F1 owner or driver was on that personal advisory board, but they'd probably be on your friend list instead.
They would absolutely be on my friend list. I love Lewis has on his helmet. I would like to add him. I would like to have a fourth person if I could be the exception.
We'll grant it.
Yeah, I would like to add Lewis Hamilton. He has on every one of his helmets, "And still we rise," the quote. And I think that's a good reminder for all of us in Women's History Month. And still we rise. We rise above it. We rise beside it. We rise together. Together we rise.
What's one thing you always make time for, no matter how busy life gets?
When my son calls, all bets are off. I will step out of a meeting. I only have one, and so I am a proud mama. So yeah, that's probably the one that I will always take. My husband recognizes that it will not always be him. I don't always step out of meetings for him, but I think he's fine that I will step out of meetings for our son.
I love it.
That's fair. All right. What's your favorite way to spend a free Saturday?
It depends on the weather and when in the year. So we are getting ready this weekend to start Formula One season. So I'm going to be watching Formula One. If it's really gross outside, either rainy or cold, I'm probably binge watching something. I don't know. Can't think of it. I'm on Blind Spot right now. It's an interesting one. If it's nice weather, I'm probably out and about doing something, but it's probably not super flashy. It's like running errands, going shopping, eating the girls for lunch or something. It's, just stuff that fuels your soul. Pilates. I do a lot of Pilates. Well, I took up embroidery a couple years ago, so I do enjoy that. I had to teach myself that. I'm learning right now that as a new leader into an organization, there's just assumptions around you and your style and how you're going to communicate and how you're going to talk and what you're going to prioritize that are just really, maybe they're accurate, maybe they aren't, depends on what the perspective is. And so I'm finding myself really, really more intentional on the narrative and the sequencing and the communication of it than I am on the outcome. And that's pretty tough for somebody who's a relentless pursuer. I'm typically drawn to the outcomes. And so I can reverse engineer, 17 different steps back to tell us kind of how we need to get after it. So I'm learning that I have to change my approach, and that's okay.
Book or the movie?
Probably always the movie. As y'all can tell, I'm sure I'm undiagnosed ADD. So I would love to tell you that I'm great about reading books and reading them on planes and on vacation and all of those things. I cannot sit still. So, even more so credit to Mel Robbins for capturing my attention on let them theory that I read it book to or end to end. But yeah, I'm gonna have to be a movie kind of gal. Sorry.
I'm with you. Window seat or aisle seat, which I had to choose from the questions because shout out to Rob Baker earlier. He's a pilot. So window or aisle?
He is. I would say it depends on the duration of the flight. If it's a little short one, I'm all right. Let me look out the window, kind of, supports the ADD, gives me a little something to look at, a little cloud cover or something. If it's a long one, I'm usually kind of in the aisle, and I have no reason for it. I have little short legs, so that it's not even a height thing. So I'm sure if I get stuck with a really tall, lady or gentleman beside me that's over 6 foot and they see me in the aisle, I'm sure they're cursing me. But yeah, I don't know. It depends on the duration.
Rob and I would tell you that aisle's for the bathroom.
Aisle.
Good to know. Okay, if we travel together, we've got to be on different rows. Good to know.
You can sit in the aisle across from Betsy, and I'll sit behind.
Okay, got it.
Always the aisle. Always.
Travel standards. I like it. We're establishing them.
Yes. All right, 2 more. And maybe I miscounted. Maybe we're already at 9, but 2 more. What's something that instantly improves your day?
Of emojis. Isn't that so cheesy?
What's your favorite emoji? Which one do you use the most?
I don't use thumbs up because I've been educated by my son that has different connotations. It's not always just thumbs up. It could just be, I don't really like you, thumbs up, like shut up. So I try not to use thumbs up. Is that news to y'all?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. Right now it's sort of circulating as more of a, that's sweet thumbs up. Like, so I'm trying really hard not to use that, but sometimes that is the only one that works. I love all the faces. I love all of they have a red F1 car. So we're in season. So I can now use the little Ferrari car and feel like it's Lewis. I like emojis.
Okay.
It's small things in life. Like when you're in a meeting and you've got your laptop and your notes and you're in meeting, 7 out of 32 for that day, and you get a text because my phone's typically with me and it has an emoji. I'm like, yeah, those people get me.
Noted.
Good.
Noted.
I love the animated GIF.
Love a GIF.
I can't lie.
Yeah, I do. That's a good one
But
too.
I think the emoji's simple. Hand clap for me, not to answer the question, but I love the hand clap.
Anybody who texts me knows I sing GIFs all day. All right, last one. If you had a walk-up song, you're going to kill me. If you had a walk-up song, what would it be? And bonus points if you sing it.
Bonus points.
This was a topic in our household last night with Rob. And I used Chatty Cathy with ChatGPT for some songs. And I got to tell you, there's some pretty good ones that are on the list. But I didn't land on like one that just moves me to like, this is it. So I'm going to give you a couple that you can enjoy. One of them was Beyonce, that Girls Run the World. Mm-hmm. Like, how can you not get behind that one? As a girl dad, Rob, mm-hmm. that probably is prominent in your house.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great Women's History Month song, too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Dolly Parton, 9 to 5, came up on the list. So I hummed and sung a little bit of that one last night. Beyonce was on there for Reformation or Get Information. Remember the Get Information? I was just going to give you the hand gestures. I almost did sing.
You did. We got it. It's recorded.
What else was on that list? I should have written it down.
9 to 5.
Rob, that was Rob's vote. I don't know. I have one that's from a couple years ago from an NFL song that Carrie Underwood did. That was the Champion, her and Ludacris.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, C is for this and H is for, and they spell out champion. I think I'm going to go with that one. I like it. It provokes me to think different. It provokes me to be better. And I like that.
No bonus points. You're not taking the bonus points. She's literally going to kill
Hey, Bets, what would Jen's walk-up song be if you had to choose it?
That might be interesting.
What's a song with badass in the title? Like something like that.
Can it be Taylor Swift? Shake it.
Yeah, it could be Taylor for sure.
I was getting a lot of Shania Twain vibes for some reason too. I don't know why, but that may not be your thing, but that was the vibe I was getting.
I liked her, but I'm drawing a blank on a specific song.
I was going to say, no offense, Shania, but I can't remember any of her songs. All right, we'll go Tay-Tay. Something Taylor.
There it is.
That's right. I like it.
All right, Jen, closing question before we wrap up.
Okay, let's do it.
Someone's listening today trying to reach their own next tier, and you've given amazing advice. But what's one last thing that you would leave them with and tell them?
Be really intentional to take the step anyway to be uncomfortable and reach out to somebody that has a skill that you want to mature. And be really intentional when you reach out and say, I am trying to work on this. I have observed you in this setting or that setting or whatever, and I love for you to help me with that skill, and I don't know where to start. I read a statistic a couple years ago, and I use it a lot, that you're 37% more likely to help someone if they start with one very simple sentence. And that is, Rob, I could really use your help. So as you start to think through being intentional about, kind of being uncommon and taking a step towards uncommon anyway and doing it with intentionality, also be really intentional about, I could use your help, and having the maturity to reach out to people that you feel like exude that particular skill that you want to try to replicate.
Powerful.
Absolutely.
Can I use your help?
Can I use your help? We talked earlier about the discussion. Isn't it interesting? Like, okay, so you're at your altitude and you're in a meeting. Hey, I could really use your help. I'm missing something. I don't understand whatever the rest of the sentence is, but I could really use your help, because it puts them immediately in they are the subject matter expert, regardless of what the topic is.
I think, too, it lowers defense mechanisms where our default is to say no.
Yep.
That creates emotion.
Well, and I think that as you grow as a leader, you become more visible, whether that's at WIT, in your community, with your job. You are much more protective of your time because you have less of it. And B, you immediately lower that guard versus like someone's trying to get something from me. Someone's trying to sell me something or use me for something, right? We all get a million calls, a million emails.
Yep.
So I think that's great. Well, my friend, thank you so much for all your insights today. And I'm grateful that just the honest conversation that we're able to give people a glimpse into the leadership that you bring. And it's exactly why we created this podcast. And so for everyone who tuned in, thank you all for listening to the Next Year podcast. We're extremely excited for future episodes. We're going to bring you more amazing guests like Jen. So if today's conversation resonated with you, please subscribe. You have homework to leave comments if you're a woman in tech, why you left. Share this episode and please continue this conversation with us for the next year and much longer, we hope. So I'll leave everyone with a simple reminder that I think resonated in this conversation, and that success isn't accidental. It is uncommon, and it is on purpose. It's intentional. So thank you. With that, Jen, we really appreciate your time. Thanks for tuning into this episode of The Next Tier. Be sure to subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you next time.